There's an imaginary line in Cyberpunk Edgerunners. That line separates episodes 1 through 6 and 7 through 10. And when the writers crossed that line, before they even realized it, they wrote a relationship so dysfunctional that it caused the entire project to go up in flames. For no goddamn reason.
Rebecca! Fight all you want, the Sandy will drive you mad eventually.
All this grown sketching up with you, Davey. You're about to drive headfirst off the cliff with no way back, alright?
Fast is what you do best, ain't it?
Can't you sit still a minute? This way! You're gonna go psycho in a second!
David Martinez in episodes 1 through 8 of Edgerunners is one of my favorite characters ever, maybe? And I really wish I could say that for the rest of the episodes, but I can't. Addiction is a really vile thing. Drugs, alcohol, sugar, caffeine, pick your poison. Anything beneficial to somebody can become a little fucking parasite that worms its way into our brains and sucks the good out of a person. David Martinez is an addict. And it would be that easy for me to say, that's why I didn't like him, and end the video here. That's also, surprise, an awful way to think about somebody with an addiction. And it's a little more nuanced than that.
Leave me alone!
Oh, David, my man, what's going on? Akira!
Let's quickly set the scene before we delve into why. David believes it's impossible for him to be like everybody else. And that's just kind of the truth. The system was made to keep people like him powerless. He literally doesn't have the ability to be like everyone else. But what he can do is edge run, and it's the only thing he's seemingly ever been good at. And that even though he couldn't be the worst Arasaka suit, he can be the best edge runner and break every limit ever expected of him. He can be better than everyone else just by being himself. He becomes even better at edge running, pushing his limits at no exaggeration every chance he gets. Not one time does he turn down the chance to show off, because now people see him. When all of his life, the only one who's ever even gotten close was his mom. And we all know how that went.
Funeral home haul. So, this is my urn. It says dad with his birthday and his death date because he's dead. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. And then I get a scattering tube. Oh my god, unboxing. And I get to take this with me wherever I want to. And
Mom! Mama! Mom, wake up!
I think I just inhaled my dad.
This all comes to a head when things go south in episode 6 and David tries to save Maine. Because when he gets there, he can't do anything other than cause problems. And for the first time since Arasaka Academy, and like the entire series, he's just like everyone else.
Not a tale for the next dreamer.
After Maine sacrifices himself to help David get away, David should at least start to question how far pushing his limits can really carry him. How far can he run before he ends up just like Maine? Whether that means at the ass end of a max tack raid, or killing the people you love just to satisfy a goddamn power trip. But obviously, David didn't do that. You can tell a person not to bob for apples because the barrel is filled with acid. But some people just won't believe you until they dunk their head in and see for themselves. So why does this not work for David? This seems like a compelling enough story. David refuses to listen to the constant warning signs everyone flashes in his face all of the time and pays the ultimate price. But the thing that makes David's situation so devoid of sympathy is that he watched people like Maine, Dorio, and Pilar die for nothing. Right in front of him. Maine alone is and should have been at least one of 3 gigantic red flags for David. To not become the cyber psycho that everyone else 100% believes he's going to be. And that's why Maine's fall arc works. It shows us the harsh reality of what cyberpsychosis does to you and the people you love. It causes every single problem in David's life after he recovers from Maine's death. And not once did he stop to think that that might be the case. And the more pressing issue is that there are more than 3 gigantic red flags. They practically put his face on a goddamn billboard that says, "My name's David Martinez, and I'm addicted to putting machines in my body." Just to run through all of the warnings people gave David in episodes 1 through 6.
Hey, editing Veronica here. I was going to, put a little montage here of every time somebody warned David about cyberpsychosis, but, it took from 5 minutes on the timeline all the way over to, 6:49. So, I think that illustrates my point better than anything I could put here.
This is one of the huge reasons why David's arc just doesn't work. A big rule of screenwriting good screenwriting, is to not write 2 characters that accomplish the same task. Even if you think you can do it better the second time, that probably just means that you should focus on doing it right the first go around. Which they did! Everything with Maine was phenomenal, so why did we need to retread the same ground with David? The reason it's still fun to watch David fall down the same path Maine did in episodes 7 and 8 is because we know it's wrong. And we're all waiting for David to clue into the truth that every single character is cramming down his fucking throat. But he just never does. He just keeps on going for seemingly no reason other than to fuel the crippling insecurity bubbling under his shiny new Sandevistan. And the part that hurts the most is that he could have come to terms with his addiction and the story would have ended the exact same way, but been 10 times more impactful. If in episode 8, David had just rolled back a bit, seeing how much he's hurting himself and everyone around him, and just how much everyone in his life cares about his safety, then not only would he have been a more likable, real person, it would have been even more heart-wrenching when he's forced to use the cyberskeleton, when he has no choice but to throw his life away and save the people that wanted to help him make it out of Night City alive. But again, that's not how it happened. David's story is that of an addict of grandiose delusions. And what happens
when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him and treats him like trash?
And unfortunately, that's far less interesting than the story of David Martinez, who no matter where he goes, will never be as special as he believes he is. Of pulling on the reins right before you fly off the edge, and doing everything you can to save the little life you have left after throwing it all away for as long as you can remember, even when the people you love couldn't do the same. But instead, there's only one person he really cares to make sure escapes it all, and unfortunately, she isn't very interesting either. The David Martinez we loved is gone. We'll never get him back. And he couldn't even do anyone the courtesy of leaving behind the people who earned our love in the first place. So, what are we left with? Lucy. Lucy is what we're left with. Before getting completely involved with David, Lucy is characterized as an ambitious woman who has dreams of leaving Night City, and who will seemingly do anything to see those dreams realized. And after the first episodes involving her with David, her motivation seems to shift to
do anything in the world for the sake of David. You now live, breathe, suck, fuck, and snort 100% pure, uncut David Martinez.
So why did she throw all that away for David of all people? The answer where I reach for Lucy to make sense is she realized that a life outside of Night City means nothing without somebody to share it with.
The real answer is because the writers wanted David to fucking pipe!
I like the idea that she learns to care about other people just from the sheer exposure to David in her life. The dumb kid from the bad side of town who wants to be just like her. But she just doesn't. She has nice banter with some of the characters and it's obvious she has friends, but she never does anything for anyone, except for David. She was more interesting when she was her own person. and not just an extension to some boringly tragic chrome junkie. You can give her all the sad, exposited backstories you want, but that won't magically bring back all the things I liked about her that the show just threw away. Everything that makes Lucy interesting is just what the writers needed her to do to lure David into the life of being an edge runner. And as sad as it is, Lucy never gets to do any of the cool rob a train, ride a gurney ass first into traffic, drag race on the moon type shit she was able to do when the plot required it. Because after she met David, there was no reason for her to. And that's not even where it stops. Because even after she throws away her entire personality just so she can peg old Davy Jones over here, she just actively starts causing problems for people. Because in episode 6, she gets her hands on a file about David, and rather than be honest with this person she supposedly loves and tell him that Arasaka is going to use him as a lab rat for the cyberskeleton, she takes it upon herself to assassinate Arasaka netrunners in secret. Do the netrunners have ill intentions for David? Are they trying to hunt him down? Or in any way planning to cause anyone harm? No! The only person they want to take down is Lucy. And it's all because she, for some mysterious reason, couldn't bear to tell him that Arasaka was breathing down his neck. Arasaka still definitely knows they want David to chip the cyberskeleton, even without the file. So what did she kill Tanaka for? What did she get Trauma Team called on them for? What did she kill Main and Dorio for? The real answer is, she did it to move the story forward. This would be at least a little understandable if she felt remorseful about it, considering all the people it got killed. Or if it tied into a broader character motivation we weren't aware of. But it's just not that deep. She wanted to protect David, apparently by getting him in situations where he's likely to get the barrel of a Max-Tac rifle shoved up his ass. Lucy has the pea-brain of a goddamn Pixar parent, where the only way they think they can protect the people they love is by lying to them. I didn't think it'd be possible for Trigger to write a manic pixie dream girl in Cyberpunk Edge Runners of all things, but here we are! Now that I think about it, I probably should have had the foresight for that. If Lucy hadn't trusted David enough to tell him the truth, she wouldn't have been captured. David wouldn't have gotten in the cyberskeleton, and above all, the 3 well-written and interesting characters we had left at the end wouldn't have had to die. Lucy is a tool to be used by the writers, not a fully or even halfway realized character. She has no motivation behind the things that she does other than doing what's best for a man she doesn't even have very good chemistry with in the first place. All she is the giant hand of the author, moving people into places they need to be for what the writers want to happen. And for a story about corporate meddling in a city where people are constantly manipulated, beaten down, and trying to crawl their way into the memory of people who will look up to them in the future, this isn't a very good look. At least it's not nearly as good as the real backbone of the show, the supporting cast. Chemistry is what holds this show together. Like it or not, this show is carried by the people that the story isn't even really about. You don't have a reason to go on without people behind you. And you don't have the juxtaposition between David's past and future without Pilar's goofy, larger-than-life attitude and his ultimately meaningless death. You don't have someone to look up to or a healthy, okay, maybe semi-healthy, partnership to strive for without Main and Dorio. You don't have a longtime friend, mentor, and eventually enemy without Kiwi. You don't have a drinking buddy or a getaway driver to fall back on when the chips are down without Falco. And most of all, you don't get any of that without Rebecca. In the end, you can really tie every good thing in this show back to Becca. But Veronica, isn't Becca constantly doing things in the interest of David's well-being? Doesn't that mean she's also a soulless freak loser who hates fun and kills babies? No, actually. Because she, like every other character in this show that isn't Lucy, has a personality. Pilar is loud, annoying, and kinda creepy. Dorio is a strong-arm badass with a heart of gold. Main is a based father figure with a crippling chrome addiction. Kiwi is a distant, greedy netrunner. And Falco is a weirdly southern baby driver-ass old dude who I can't help but love. And Rebecca is literally perfect. She doesn't compromise who she is just to be with David. That's the difference between a fully realized person and an accessory to the protagonist. Like she said herself, better hot and loud than cold, distant, and nerdy. Or, I guess in this case, better hot and loud than a poorly written pile of garbage. No matter how attractive people find the garbage to be. She's a friend to David, a person who she cares about, but in no regards throws away her beliefs just to please someone she knows she has no chance with anyway. And she wouldn't even if he did feel the same way. Because Rebecca is a consistent, real character. A person, not a placeholder to be tossed around by the writers. And this goes for every character in the story that isn't David or Lucy. The cast was carrying the protagonist on their shoulders so well that the moment they were all snuffed out, the MCs fell off, and the writers refused to let them get back up. They're forced to just run around and do things that sometimes make sense, like David making deals with Faraday and losing his mind, but most of the time, do shit that doesn't seem like it could be the slightest bit good for anybody. And if these two absolute goons would bother to listen to the people they supposedly care about, if they'd have listened to the people they should care about, then David and the others would have never had to die for the sake of someone else's dream. For someone who didn't care about them in life and doesn't seem to in death. For a lot of people, Trigger's amazing visuals, music, characters, at least the well-written ones, and everything in between will be enough to carry them to the end and tear their heart out. But unfortunately, that just isn't the case for me. I understand that the message of the show is that nobody makes it out of Night City alive. They die as just another story for the next street kid to read, unless they live in complacency. But what I really wanted to see was the ultimate good of making do with what you have in life can accomplish if you choose it over a meaningless death. Or like the show really wants you to remember, choosing it over making a dead man's dream come true. A meaningless death like Johnny Silverhand's, or his dream of going out fighting Arasaka in a blaze of glory. Instead of trying yet again to prove the same point they've already made abundantly clear, whether that be with Maine's arc or the entirety of the game the show's based off of. But even though they set up the tee, and all they had to do was hit the fucking ball, they just chose to stop playing altogether. Even so, I still appreciate everything it did that was good, anyway. And when I look at everything that's amazing about the show, I can hardly stop thinking about how just amazingly written it is. At least the parts that don't suck. But at the end of the day, something as important as the main character went neglected. Whether it's because of ironic corporate meddling, budget restraints, creative disagreements, crunch, whatever. It's still less of an experience than it easily could have been with just a smidge of all the love and attention they gave to the rest of the show. For most people, the rule of cool carries this show out of the bad character writing I associate it with and throws it over the goddamn moon. But if all of it isn't just as cool and well thought out as the rest of the show is, whatever isn't will slingshot the other way.
And fly straight over the edge.
How to say it, it's because, you know, in the beginning we were building the story arcs for each character, like their development, but then like working with Trigger gave me a lot of new knowledge that I'm using right now as a writer, because they showed me that sometimes you shouldn't go with the proper character development. You should show that the characters are or behave in an like illogical way, that they are doing things that they shouldn't do, that they act like they shouldn't act. And I think that's the that's the way you are feeling so much for them, because they feel real.
Your yapping is killing me, literally.
Dick.